This video was brought to you by my patrons. I hate remakes, I really do, but not because of what you might think. It's something deeper, more complex, something I've thought about with every remake that has ever been done, and the Cowboy Bebop Netflix show is no different. Before I tell you what the reason is, let me first say the following. This live-action adaptation isn't terrible. That's right. It has awful moments, filled with pure cringe and mind-boggling decisions that set it back so much, but it also has quite a few things that were done well. Let's start with my favorite aspect of this show, its filmmaking. Whilst not perfect by any means, the show tries to have a distinct visual style, not only with its camera work, but also with its cinematography. Then no better is this shown than in many of its action sequences. The directors Alex Garcia Lopez and Michael Keitelman imbue a sense of style in its visuals that actually made me appreciate some of its creativity, where the camera moves along with the characters, whether it's a traveling shot accompanying the actors or the camera rotating with them whilst they do their crazy stunt moves. Considering that the action in the anime is so visually enthralling thanks to its amazing animation and framing, it's good to see the creators of the Netflix version actually try and put so much care into these scenes. Something that can also be noticed with its creative set design and its use of costumes, making the environments feel more alive around the characters, as if they're actually in that world. Not only that, but the casting of the protagonist was also quite good. Whether it's Daniella Pineda as Faye Valentine, Mustafa Shakir as Jet Black, or John Cho as Spike Spiegel. I think all of them do the best job that they can with what they were given, and even at times surpassed my expectations, especially with Cho's performance. Despite his older age, he captured the essence of the original character really well. Whether it's his quippy lines, which I felt worked for the most part, or how he deals with his dark past, preferring to seclude himself from others rather than openly talk about it. And to top it all off, it really helps having Yoko Kanno come back as the composer of the show, not only with the iconic tracks from the original, but with the brilliance of the new songs too. However, these are where the positives end. Everything else is essentially a massive moment. I could talk about the writing.
Sounds to me like blackmail.
You're damn right it is, because Jet, you are black and you are male.
The cringy lines.
Welcome to the ass, mother.
The overabundance use of insults.
I'm not high. What the you Cole's chicken. Total you.
The characters' personalities that don't fully translate into live action.
Spike! Spike Spiegel!
No.
You're Spike! Cowboy! Bounty hunter for hire! Wake up! I have a job for you!
No.
Bad man's big reward!
No.
Boo! Danger, danger!
No.
The awful depictions and storyline of its most iconic villain and angelical character.
You made me who I am.
Or even the actions of abandoning a dog who has no fault in what happened to him. Like seriously, how is no one talking about what they did to Ayn? But while that is all true, there is something else that for me stood out more than the rest. And that is the lack of understanding of what the anime truly is. The anime focuses on three lonely characters who find comfort in each other, not by talking about their problems, but rather just being in their presence. They almost never share their pasts with one another. They don't want to. It's hurtful enough that they have to deal with it, and in some ways, they're even trying to run away from it. It's why they are all together. They just happen to cross paths, and often work together whilst trying to get new bounties. But once the past comes knocking at their door, they end up dealing with it on their own. It's subtle, it's mesmerizing, it's melancholic. No words need to be uttered for us to understand where they are coming from, and that's the inherent beauty of the show. But the live-action show doesn't do this, and by not doing it, it ultimately goes against one of the fundamental laws of filmmaking. Show, don't tell. Instead, there is a lot of telling and not a lot of showing. Whether it's characters constantly talking about their past.
How could you not know?
Because I have amnesia.
It's the man who took Kimmy. His name is Vicious. He was my partner.
Or telling each other how they feel.
And right now, all I'm afraid of is losing you.
For example, Jet wants everyone to be truthful about their lives with one another, every step of the way. And so, tension rises when Faye or Spike are not being honest about who they truly are.
You lied! I brought you on my goddamn ship, in my home, and you played me.
Which is the exact opposite of what happens in the anime. It was always about them respecting each other's past life, even if they weren't totally in agreement with what the other was doing at times. But here, Jet is constantly mad when this happens, and I'm baffled by this writing decision. This isn't to say that it needed to be the same. They could have done something different if they acknowledged that hiding your past could be detrimental to you. After all, one of the main themes of the original is learning that you shouldn't obsess over your previous life. Faye even openly talks to Spike about this right at the end of the anime. It's the only time where an actual conversation is had because she understands what truly matters is being with each other.
私、記憶戻ったの。でも、いいことなんて何にもなかった。帰る場所なんてどこにもなかった。
But Spike can't seem to do that, which ultimately leads to his downfall. Whereas in the live action, when Spike and Faye have that moment, she merely says this.
Spike. Shoot them before they shoot you, huh?
And that's why the live action adaptation never really works for me. I totally recognize that a lot of love and care went into making this as best as possible with what they were given. Whether it's the directors, the camera work, the set design, the costumes, the actors, and of course, the music. But for everything that is good, or at least can be appreciated on some level, there's also so much that is questionable from a writing and execution standpoint. And that is always an issue when doing remakes. That no matter what you do, they are always doomed to fail. The truth is, the Cowboy Bebop live-action series should have never been greenlit in the first place, because by doing so, you are constrained to what the original did, and that's limiting yourself to what you could do if it wasn't a full-on adaptation, but rather being merely influenced by it. Let's take the anime for instance. To say that Cowboy Bebop is 100% original is a lie, because Shinichiro Watanabe wouldn't have created it if not for everything that came before it. Whether it's with Lupin III, or westerns, or noir films, or music, or even actors who resemble the main characters of the original. Everything the anime does is an homage to every cinematic genre that Watanabe loves. It's an excuse to do whatever he wants with each episode, with each adventure, and because of that, it became its own thing. This is what cinema is at its core. You might have watched Inception in theaters and thought it was the greatest masterpiece of all time, but it would have never existed if not for Paprika. You might have watched Black Swan on Blu-ray and thought it was one of the most beautiful films you've ever seen, but it would have never existed if not for Perfect Blue. You might have watched The Matrix on DVD in the early 2000s and been blown away by it, but it would have never existed if not for Ghost in the Shell. The reason why all of these spectacles fully work is precisely because they are not their exact counterparts. So the creators don't have to choose between doing something new that isn't faithful to the original, or trying their best to be faithful but ending up not translating well from a filmmaking standpoint. They just do whatever they want to do, to express something that deeply resonates with them, and in turn ends up resonating with us too, because their main goal isn't to be influenced by what came before it, but rather it's about breathing what others have done to say something you yourself have to say. Just like the Cowboy Bebop anime had something to say, just like Shinichiro Watanabe had something to say. just like all of these works of art had something to say. And unfortunately, because the live action adaptation is so worried about whether it's being faithful or not, it ends up having nothing to say. Thank you for watching my video. Like I mentioned before, I don't hate the live action adaptation itself, but it was doomed to fail to begin with. I want to thank all of my patrons for supporting me thus far. I can't thank you enough. I truly love making each video, and so for me to keep doing this, your support is crucial. And thus, if you want to see more content like this, I'll be forever grateful if you could support with any amount you can. It would also mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit that like button. And in the meantime, why not check out some of the other videos I've made so far. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.